Hello, good morning. Good morning, Africa Arena. So, yeah, I think we've got an interesting panel subject ahead, which is building on a topic that's come up a couple of times this morning already. Just to introduce myself quickly, I'm Abigail Thompson. I'm working in the FMO Capacity Development Team, and I work alongside the Ventures Program, which is a fund investing in early stage businesses, and also funds across Africa, Middle East, and Asia. I'm joined here today by some panelists. We've got Walid Balaga from the Endeavour, Tunisia, and also operating across managing and coordinating across the region. We've got Ibrahim Ramadan here from Sawari Ventures, which is based in Cairo, and Asma from Flat 6 Labs. I think a lot of startup programs also across the region, but representing Tunisia today. And Alaya also has already introduced Smart Capital very eloquently earlier today. So really looking forward to the inputs on this important subject. And I'm wondering if we feel a little despondent about this title. It seems to suggest that, and to imply that North Africa is significantly behind neighboring regions here, like the Middle East, in terms of exits. So I will maybe start by asking the panelists this question. Do you feel despondent, or are there reasons to be cheerful? And, maybe representing your organizations in terms of what you're doing to address this. So from my left, take it away.
Hi everyone. Again, Walid Balaga from representing Endeavour in Tunisia, and we cover also Algeria from Tunisia. And at Endeavour we support scale-up stage organizations and support them accelerating their growth in multiple ways. With presence in 40 markets globally. So personally, one of the main reasons I'm feeling optimistic about basically the trends that we are seeing in North Africa is in the last few years, like if you think about the entrepreneurial scene about 5 to 6 years ago, it's completely different from what it is today. And one of the main reasons I do feel optimistic about what we are seeing today is today we have success stories that we definitely did not have in the last few years. Some of the companies we are supporting, such as Ensadip, Expensia, Cognira, etc., are being a huge inspiration for the local ecosystems and are attracting talent to and actually inspiring the next generation. Something that was mentioned earlier by Khaled, inspiring the next generation to move into this entrepreneurial space is a key piece in order to create the next startups, obviously, but with these next these current success stories, we're gonna very quickly in the next few years, we're gonna see even more exits. We're gonna be seeing a lot of stock options being converted into real money, and we're gonna be seeing a lot of employees starting their own startup employees or scale-up employees starting their own startups, and that is actually going to be. We are actually, I think, today at an inflection point where that trend is going to accelerate.
Ibrahim, do you agree? And since you've had your hand in a couple of these exits, maybe you can talk more about that.
Well, you know me. First of all, it's not 39 versus 2. It's more of 39, which includes more than 12 from North Africa. So let's say it's more of 20-something to 12 that I know of. But, so I don't see that much of a discrepancy between what's happening in GCC and North Africa. GCC has significantly higher liquidity in North Africa at the moment. Just see the amount of funding available per capita there versus here. So for me, it's first of all the title 39 versus 2 is not accurate, a tiny bit misleading. But this goes back to the kind of exposure and the kind of the things that the media gives for everyone else. But so we have Endeavour to thank for their reports. You're taking us there bit by bit. So I would start off by challenging that title altogether.
Yeah, I'm joining both of them. So I'm saying that we shouldn't be ashamed of this number. What we've done all those 5 years, it's huge. So there are a lot of achievements that we need to consolidate, and that's what we are working on. Before talking about exits, we are talking about labeling startups thanks to smart capital. We are talking about structures which are taking place in the ecosystem. We, as Flat6 Labs, we are very active in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and we are very active with our startups. So in 5 years, we have invested in now, counting the running cycle, 75 startups, which is good, I think, so for starters. So we need to be proud of what we've achieved so far. There is a lot to do, still a lot to do, and we are raising awareness about entrepreneurial ecosystem. We are pushing students and pushing people to initiate and to do initiatives, to do businesses, to go into the startups world. So there is a lot of layer of raising awareness, a layer of then support system, a layer of funding, and then there is too many milestones to do before talking about exits. So now we're starting to have success stories. We're starting to have like InstaDeep, Expansia, and now we have in our portfolio Go My Code, which they have made the fundraising the biggest fundraising for an edtech in Africa. So this is huge. That's what we should applaud. And we have also What Now, which have done $1 million of fundraising. So those are the success stories that we have. And the next step, we will talk about exits.
Thank you for the question. In fact, following, what I know, in fact, from the region, I'm very keen, in fact, about to see who's exiting and who's not exiting. So if I go into the details of those who are exiting, in the region, in the Gulf, essentially, I'm really sure they're in trade, consumer goods, and all these things. But probably, and I agree with my colleagues what they've been saying, as far as you are really investing in technology, as far as you are innovative and scalable, I'm not afraid. You know the example Esma is saying about Expansia and InstaDeep, they are not exiting, but they are raising funds. This is an excellent site that they can really exit, very soon. With an excellent... so I think what we put in Tunisia, within the Startup Act, and we are labeling those who are innovative and scalable, reassure me that the future, of these companies, both in raising funds and later in exiting, is not a really big issue. If we keep on this trend and then this strategy and going and working essentially on technology, this will really give an excellent hope for both fundraising and exiting.
Thank you. And I think maybe to put some sort of meat on the bones here, could we talk about one of these exits? So I know that, that Harmonica, now rebranded to Hawaii, is quite one of these success stories that I think we can be proud of, as you're saying. So could we talk about that, maybe Ibrahim and Asma, since you're both involved there, and just, are there some lessons learned that you could share with this audience?
Yeah, so Harmonica, does it work? So Harmonica, this is our first exit as Flat6 Labs in the regional level. Sorry. So that was in the Egyptian office, our Egyptian office. So it was in the first cohort of the Egyptian fund, FAC. So it was back to 2017 that Harmonica joined Flat6 Labs at that time. And of course, when they came, it was the founder who came to us, Sameh, and he still didn't have an MVP when he came to us. So they joined the program, the acceleration program, and we pushed him to launch his MVP. That's what we did during the program. And and he started having, so the idea is to have a sense of the market, of course. So he launched his MVP, he started to understand the market, he started to have some traction, and then one day there is a user who talked about harmonica, and it went viral. So it passes from 5,000 users to 200,000 users, and all that during the acceleration program. So it was interesting to see the traction, to see the fact that you can be a dating app, because yes, I didn't introduce the harmonica. Yes, app. It's a halal dating app. It's the halal version of Tinder. So it targeted the Muslim population, which is a conservative population. So you can be innovative when we talk about the target that you are taking and that you are your target. So it's a kind of a positioning that you are putting in place. So you don't need to be in a deep technology. You can be a dating app, but you just take the question in another way. So then after this, we support him, and we didn't stop the support even after the demo day, of course. Thanks to our regional connections, we 500 startups were part of our connections, so they got funded from 500 startups. We joined this round too, and then there is an event in UAE, so we invite him to that event, Harmonica. He went to that event, and at that event he was introduced to Match Group. So the Match Group is a global US internet company who got more than 45 dating apps. And that's when the conversation started. And when the conversation started, we were talking about fundraising. So they asked him for fundraising, and then they see that the visions were aligned, so it shifted. The conversation shifted from fundraising to acquisition. So 3 months later, we were talking about acquisition, and the deal was sealed, and we did it. And the great thing of the story is that building a good relationship with the founder is very important too. Because all along the way, he was backed by us. He was always, we were always in a position of advising, of consultancy, and there is a lot of confidence, of trust. So we were seen not as investors, but also as partners. We were in the same side of the table with him. So he was protecting us somehow. So he was thinking of our interests, of us being comfortable with the exit, and us being comfortable with the valuation, and so on and so forth. And that's how it works.
Yeah, the only thing I can add here, because I was there when this was happening in Cairo. So the process with Match was not a typical thing that a founder that just started a company a year ago would come about, right? He's still basically learning what to do in Series A's term sheets, and now we're talking about an acquisition and an earn-out and series of things that are quite new for almost everyone in our ecosystem. Sameh is an exceptional founder. He had built something that a giant as Match.com spent decades trying to crack how to enter the conservative markets. And he just did just like that. And so it was obvious that they needed Sameh more than actually his product. They needed his team. They needed how he was able to crack and grow within a span of 6 months, like gangbusters. And Sameh knew his limitations. Sameh knew, I don't understand this investment realm. I don't want to be squeezed out, screwed over, or end up without getting what I actually deserve. And he asked for help. And this goes back to the kind of relationship that we try to build across Sawari and Fast6 Labs with the founders. We are your partners. We are there to help you. Our interests have to be aligned from day zero. From the first day we meet you, otherwise, get out of here. So Sameh is quite of a success story. And actually now he's starting a new company.
Okay, interesting. What I'm hearing is it's more than just the capital then.
Absolutely.
This is about providing the connections and the support.
Yes, and it's a question of opportunities too, because with Harmonica, and now it's rebranded Hawaya, we were shareholders for 18 months. So when they came to the accelerator, they didn't have yet their MVP. They launched their MVP, traction, success, acquisition, all this in 18 and only 18 months. So it's a huge. So the opportunity, being very open to any opportunity that you got, is also very important.
So then the question begs itself, was this a bit of a fluke, or is this something that's like a pattern that can be continued? Have we built, is there a track record of these exits enough that you can start sort of following these models, or is this something that will continue to develop over the next?
Well, my dear colleague Farah here has another exit also within 18 months from the investment. But 2 consecutive hits of having a significant return that's within a short period of time is not a good enough indicator for what's going to happen going forward. I still expect to see the longer holding periods, the 3-4 years plus holding periods for our companies. And what we can do to those companies to help them actually reach that point is just do our job. Make sure that they are a good enough company, that they are doing everything properly, that they are on track. And then we will worry about when exactly we're exiting later. But first we need to cover the basics.
Interesting. So in terms of developing like the pipeline and accelerating this ecosystem towards exit then, I mean, Endeavor, this is a network of entrepreneurs, for entrepreneurs, and it's really had significant kind of global success, including a fund that invests and has been invested in the region as well. So how do you see the Endeavor role? Could it be bolder in the actions it's taking?
We did actually, talking about the fund, we do invest in our entrepreneurs, and we just closed the $290 million Delaware-based fund that invests in all markets where Endeavor is. That fund invested, talking about Tunisia and Algeria specifically, in Instadeep and Yesir, that are 2 portfolio companies. But the role that we play beyond investment, and by the way, we never lead the round. Our DNA is to always be on the same side of the table as our entrepreneur, even during the investment conversation and negotiation. So the major role that we play beyond investment is actually helping the creation of, or the accelerating the creation of these role models locally, supporting them actually multiply their impact locally. So if you think about these big success stories, and obviously these big entrepreneurs or successful entrepreneurs, the idea behind the model that we are trying to execute in every market is basically to help them, once they reach a certain level, start investing in the next generation of entrepreneurs, which is happening now in Tunisia, in our network. Start obviously mentoring these entrepreneurs, having employees of their scale-up start their own startups and be supported by these founders. And so these are the things that are going to create the mafias of each one of these companies. So we have seen through the Karim exit and in the Endeavor network, the huge impact of that exit and the creation of multiple startups of Karim, led by employees of Karim once they converted their stock options, and we've seen that in UAE, in Egypt, and other markets. At the core, what we are trying to do is making sure they not only succeed, that then they multiply their impact in the ecosystem. And ultimately, we want them to be even part of our board at Endeavor, including at Endeavor Global. So recently, a couple months ago, Guillaume Poussas, who is the CEO of Checkout.com, actually joined the board of Endeavor Global, which is headed by Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn. And Guillaume is based in Dubai. So that tells you the level of actually the geographic spread that we're trying to execute even at the highest level of the organization.
So what I really like about this Endeavor model is how organic it sounds, right? You're talking about role models, about leveraging like the success that has taken place and paying that forward. Alaya, there's also an institutional approach for supporting the kind of entrepreneurial ecosystem. And I think you mentioned the example of InstaDeep. And in one of our preparation discussions, you also talked about this labeling benefits that have come from the Tunisian Startup Act. Is there something around this that can also be shared kind of regionally?
Thank you, Abigail. Yes, absolutely. In fact, labeling won't help really much on exit, but it help on really setting the base of technology, which probably later it will give an excellent chance, for the company to raise fund and to exit, as I said before. But in fact, as a national player of startups, of course, these kind of things, exit particularly, has been thought of. And I think the model that has been really set for the fund of fund, ANAVA, is quite, interesting in a way that we are really going to create 13 funds in seed, early, and late stage. So we feel that it's going to be probably natural, that probably the early will take over the seed and the late will take over the early. And there is certainly some exits which will be really done by takeover from one fund to another. Of course, probably it won't be for all the startups. So this is why we, for example, approach the stock market, Tunisian stock market, and we propose to them really to think about a secondary market for startups. And this is really happening in Tunisia. Me personally, I was the initiator of the alternative market in 2006. Unfortunately, it didn't continue. So many people were really working extremely hard for that. But at that time, it wasn't for startup. It was for what we called the innovative SMEs. Anyway, it didn't continue. But I think today, with the program being established, with mechanism being in place, with fund of fund being really creating, and boosting and the ecosystem of VC, etc. And with 750 startups today labeled, probably 1,000, 1,500 in the future, probably, to be very optimistic, 200, 300 of them will be invested and will be also growing, in the market. I'm sure the secondary market for startup will have its reason and it would have a chance, to be able really to, to reduce the risk of exit, for the fund that we are going really to close. We are also thinking about guarantee mechanism in order really also to absorb, whatever risk and write-off is going really to be on this fund, in order really that the managers will concentrate really on exits and through really the best deals, for this. And so, yes, we are really putting the ecosystems. Yes, we are really boosting, the VC ecosystem in terms of funds, but this issue is extremely important, and we think we are really thinking about also a mechanism which can really align these elements. Thank you.
This is a very optimistic panel in terms of both what we've achieved already and and what still needs to be worked on. But I think let's be interested in the whole panel's thoughts around are there things that other players can be doing to support in this kind of enabling environment around? What are still some of the challenges that remain that need to be addressed in this region? Walid.
So I would say if we start talking about exits and like success stories, we are obviously now talking about scale-ups, and we need to be aware that the challenges that scale-ups face are almost completely different from the challenges that they do face when they are at a startup stage. And like commonly we are much more aware of the challenges that startup face at an earlier stage than at a scale-up stage. And if being kind of a startup founder is kind of a lonely path, actually a scale-up is even a lonelier one, because you have even less people that have done it in the past and that you can relate to, that you can talk to. And part of what we do is that connecting these scale-up founders. One of the challenges that these scale-up founders face in a country such as Tunisia is that when you are building a company that reaches 250 employees, 300 employees, it's a complete transformation from a talent perspective that they go through. They no longer know the people they cross in the corridor by name, and there are challenges around maintaining culture and or building culture and assessing the team and things like that, and keeping talent at a high level that we help a lot with among the topics. But going back to Tunisia, we talk about a lot about the highway that we have of talent leaving the country. And one of the realities is that highway is a one-way highway, in the sense that our regulation today in Tunisia does not allow for Tunisian companies to hire foreigners to work in Tunisia. So this is a topic that we are working with the government, Smart Capital, and other organizations to try to fix. The reason, I mean, it was important maybe in the 60s, where the mindset was more to protect our local jobs. The reality today is countries like the UAE have been built on foreign talent, okay? And if you do not take that into consideration, and you're not able to attract very senior tech people, for instance, bring them to Tunisia, actually you will not be able to keep your local talent, because when a tech person, when an IT talent reaches like 3 years of experience, and they can no longer work with someone who can inspire them, they can learn from, that have had exposure to 5 different countries, worked in different scale-ups, etc. They will go look for that leader in the different countries. So our laws need to allow us to bring these senior talent in order to build a management level, a senior management level locally. And that's one of the answers that we need to bring, not only actually in startups, but I'm sure it is the case for multiple industries. So we need to kind of change the mindset around talent and be more open in our countries to foreign talent, and especially when we talk about, we have a lot to offer in terms of quality of life in Tunisia. So I know that many international senior talents are willing to move to Tunisia, to work in Tunisia, and our scale-up founders are telling us that. So by saying this, actually, it's not me saying this; it's the founders that we are supporting that telling us this message, and we're trying to work together to address these type of local challenges.
Thank you. That's a really clear recommendation. Is this also in Egypt, an issue in Egypt, or is there something else like around sort of challenges that?
So I'm trying to think about and classify the exits themselves, right? So we have the consolidation approach, local one, 2 startups, or even regional, 2 startups, one slightly larger than the other, consolidating to acquire the market. And then we have what I would call somehow premature exits, companies that could have grown 100 times more with the right support, with the right network, with the right funding, but then the competitors think now it's time to make a move, otherwise they will come for my head or become too expensive later on to acquire. And then of course you have the ones that go all the way until the end. So for the smaller ones, the consolidating ones, they would require to have a bit more capital or the thought process of consolidation, because it's only started recently when companies started, laying off people and knowing that they're on a route to more or less failure, that they do this consolidation. And when they do it, they did it mainly through either waiting for it to close down and take it for nothing, or try to make it sound like a merger so that no one would be worse off. But it was never really, or not never, so far not done in that typical proper consolidation approach. The market's still too young for it to take its potential. So I'll focus at least on the premature ones because those are picking up fast. The founders, sometimes they get an offer that would guarantee them a very, very nice retirement when the lockup period expires. The investors, sometimes they like to have the quick exits because it's guaranteed money. But something that's fundamentally there, if the company believed it would still have the Series B, Series C, maybe D funding easily available, they would have felt that they have a more fighting chance to make even something bigger and better. So this actually kind of goes back there, that the journey after once you reach the scale can be a bit lonely. And in a market where the majority of investors are capped at Series B, I believe. How many Series C, Series D players we have here? Locally, at least. Doesn't exist. And then we have the final ones, the big ones, the big boys, the fund returners. We are still yet to see more of those happening. I believe over the next 2 to 3 years, there will be a lot of those. Because the ecosystem here is still quite young. We track data from 2015, but I believe that the actual start of things picking up is closer to 2018, 2019, when the market started picking up. So on Khalid's concern about exits, they are coming. We see them, it's happening. Don't worry, it's happening.
And I suppose I hope we have some time for questions. I was given a 5-minute warning, but the other session went over a bit. We've got some time for questions, great. So maybe if you can kind of summarize, Asma and also Alaya, on your kind of what else needs to be done. Like, are there some sort of recommendations that you have for how we can accelerate towards this environment of healthy exits?
So Tunisia is a small country, so for the startups, they need to expand the soonest. So what they have to do is to work on their fundamentals, the fundamentals of the startups. They need to have a good product, a clear vision. They need to persevere on all this stuff. And on our side, we need to facilitate all this for them. So we need to support them to have a good quality of a product, and we need to facilitate the funding for them. So I think that Tunisia needs to be put in the roadmap, in the map. Needs to be put in the map. So events like these, it's very important to get investors in like these events, it's getting to know more about what's happening in Tunisia, about what the Tunisian ecosystem is made of, what's happening, what are the opportunities. And yes, we need to facilitate the investments into this market. So we need to open it more and to facilitate the co-investments.
Thank you. In fact, if I give a bit of history, I'm going to summarize, don't worry about it. But if I give a bit of history, Startup Act has been really promulgated because a lot of young people are fleeing the country after the revolution. So it has been made in order really to encourage talents, those who are innovative, to stay in Tunisia. We create, the Startup Act, and we give 22 incentives to those who are really willing really to set up their startup in Tunisia and probably to stay in Tunisia. When I take the responsibility in Smart Capital, from the first night I start to live a dilemma. What kind of dilemma? Is that I'm feeling and I'm seeing that all successful startups are quitting the country. Probably because of the conditions of the LPs who are going really to enter, or new LPs who are going to enter the capital, to impose them to really to have an office or to have an affiliation outside, in France and in Germany, etc., etc. And we are seeing it with Expansia, with InstaDeep, etc. So and also, by the way, in fact, this is a dilemma, yes, so I'm feeling that I'm really building an ecosystem which is going really to quit the country, But when you see other countries' startups, even in Europe who are really fleeing, well, not fleeing, but they are really going and setting base in Silicon Valley, the many Asian setting base in Japan or in China, etc., etc. You see that this is a really natural trend. So, but the most important thing probably, in order really, and why are these current existing? Because most of the startups are living for a better ecosystem, a better environment, when they can really have probably a better chance to grow, etc. So it starts by raising the fund, and it ends by an exit, which really probably they're set, all the company in general, internationally. I say that Tunisia has only one chance after this startup and all the efforts done really to put an ecosystem, which is, I'm extremely glad and honored to say that it's really inspiring a lot of African friends and countries. I think Tunisia has a lot to do to improve its ecosystem, at least really that when they are in Series A and B, they are still in Tunisia. Probably when they are in C and D, for sure, they are going really to quit. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm certainly finishing this panel feeling inspired for the potential Tunisia, and I think in the region as well. We have got some case studies already, and it's really like, from the sounds of it and all of the different entrepreneur support organizations that exist, it has that right platform to continue growing. Wasim, am I allowed to ask for a couple of questions from the audience? Fantastic. Please go ahead, and any questions that you have for our panelists on the subject of exits, or any other subjects that have been touched upon. Thanks, Yannick.
Thank you for the great conversation. So my question is more of kind of question. We look at the IPO landscape, the exit landscape in Africa is mostly acquisitions or secondary market or no IPOs. But I would like to hear from you, what would be your ideal exit landscape for Africa as a continent, thinking about the different portfolio companies that you have in different parts of Africa? What would be your Wakanda, basically, of exits? Your vision, ideally speaking?
Well, allow me. It depends. There are certain companies that from day zero, I know that they will never IPO, irrespective of how good the capital markets are, irrespective of everything. That's the kind of company that fits perfectly within something significantly bigger. So I cannot have this ideal scenario across the board. It's a case-by-case basis. There's a company. It could either be acquired by financial institution or IPO, but I would sure love to see it properly IPO because it can reach there. It will signal, it will propagate across the market for future generations to come to inspire them. So again, I would always stick to the basics, make sure I have a company that's growing properly, proper fundamentals, proper business models on the ground, and we'll take it from there step by step. You can only hope and wish, but in our industry, there are so many exogenous factors that you cannot really account for.
Any other questions?
Just I will follow with
Of course.
Ibrahim is saying. In fact, what's ideal, frankly speaking, is to have I feel, a strong stock market, dedicated, for startup. I dream really to have merger and acquisition within Africa, to see, big corporate created by the merger of many startups, based, in Africa, at least also to give a new image of Techno Africa. Developing. Today we have everybody recognize that Tunisia, of course, yes, but also Africa has a lot of talents. We have really to capitalize on these talents and build on it in order really to create big companies who are really based in Africa. And there is a lot of cases really happening. So this trend, I think, should continue in order really to see another Africa.
Hi, thank you. That was really interesting. Thank you all. So I've met some of you already, most of you, and I just heard your side of all that's going on, Mr. Alaya. It's super interesting. And I was wondering what kind of structure, what kind of support structure, and what kind of, in general, what kind of organization would be supporting startups and would be effectively supporting startups in Tunisia? To your opinion, all of you, the panel. What do you think is needed here in Tunisia?
For exit?
No, in general.
In general. In fact, wow, see, this is general thing. In fact, I made, I think, an introduction of what startup is really doing for the ecosystem in order really to boost, the culture of startup and essentially to create a new mindset. As I said early in my introductory note, the law is extremely, extremely important really to identify those who are hidden in the garage or to be able to discover, their talent is extremely, extremely important. And I'm very happy that this is inspiring many African countries. 19 African countries today are really developing their Startup Act. We are going really to receive a delegation next week from Côte d'Ivoire, Senegal, and Benin. So I'm very, very happy that this is really happening in Africa. This is very, very important. Second is extremely important is the ecosystem. Is to get back, the startups on their needs. Whatever is not really offered by funds should be really, offered by institutions like us in order really to help startups really meet their needs on their development, on the early stage, seed, pre-seed development. This is also very, very important. I think within the ecosystem, we are really supporting the supporting structure, incubator, accelerator, startup studio. I think we need also another network, very, very strong network of mentors. This is very, very important. Mentors are key to help really startups really grow and develop. So this is also very, very important. Access to market, also another key element which all the startups need to be able to grow. So it's not only Tunisian market, very, very little. So they have really to have access to the African international market in general, but African market also in particular. I think Africa today has a chance through the ZLECAf. En fait, in French is Zone de Libre-Échange Continental Africaine, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which is now happening, I mean, within Africa. I think it's very important really to think about startup and to make, how to say, a new group within the big group, which is dedicated to startup, in order that South African startup can really come to Tunisia and have all the advantage of the Tunisian one. Nigerian go to Egypt, Ethiopian go to Kenya, etc. So this is very, very important. By the way, Tunisian startup is really giving all its advantage to all people, I mean, regardless of their nationality, to set base in Tunisia. Today we have 20 or more nationality being labeled startup in Tunisia. It's very important. So we hope that all African countries will follow this example. If this is example also followed by other countries, we can move here and there. So this is excellent thing in order really to create a free trade agreement for startup in Africa. So this access market will be very easy. I mean, through this mechanism. I mean, cannot really move, cannot grow without money. So money is key, and I think Tunisia's example also is a good one. I mean, by creating a fund of fund in order really to create, I mean, all the mechanism and all the growth stage, pre-seed, seed, early, late, etc. And then you continue. Exit is another thing we are really thinking about, as I said, through, I mean, a dedicated stock market here in Tunisia, I mean, for startups. I think also this one also another excellent mechanism. I hope, of course, that once successful, it could really inspire a lot of African countries. Thank you for the question.
Thanks, Alaa. Ibrahim, you wanted to do a final point, and I think we need to wrap up for the next session.
One small thing to add. For me, something underlying. No matter what kind of support there is, mentorship, whatever it is very crucial that the institution providing those services are profit-seeking, capital gain-seeking, whatever it is that's actually going after, more a capitalistic approach rather than a KPI quota checking approach, because this, one, ensures the sustainability of that kind of support. Two, their selection will not be biased towards certain KPIs. It will be biased towards actually making money. And us investors, we love making money with an impact. So if the ecosystem is supporting lots of companies that will never make money, we're not interested.
That was the bottom line. Thank you very much for your attention for the panel. Thank you to the panelists as well. That was very valuable for me indeed, and I do think that the Tunisian startup story has certainly got some relevance for a lot of the other African countries that we as FMO certainly are looking to invest in and looking to see that kind of regulatory environment and entrepreneur support environment to accommodate that investment. So thank you.
Thank you, Abigail.